This summer, I was lucky enough to have a directed study with Jed Johnston through Doane University to continue my educational leadership degree for my master's. And this is my culminating project to talk about all that I've done this summer, and all that I have learned from it. So I worked in 2 different locations, and that was Beadle Middle School and Horizon High School. When working at Beadle Middle School, I worked with RTI plus I students, which is Response to Instruction and Intervention. I also worked with the New Teacher Orientation, which is just the new teachers to Beadle. I worked with a math intervention curriculum, as well as we have a new math interventionist this year. Working at Horizon High School, I worked with a promotion t-shirt product that they wanted created, and I worked with credit counts in order to graduate from high school, and also doing some action plan research. So I'm going to go through each of those steps, and the first thing I worked with was RTI plus I, which was Response to Intervention and Instruction. And in order to get this all completed, what I had to do was I basically had to compile a list of students that were going to be needing interventions in the following year. Those were students going into 6th grade, going into 7th grade, and going into 8th grade at Beadle Middle School. I was able to pull all kinds of data from previous years working with the students. The 7th and 8th grade was a little easier because we worked with the students that were currently in those interventions in 6th and 7th grade moving up. 5th grade was just from teacher recommendation and their low MAP scores from the previous year. And MAP is our test that we take 3 times a year. That's our standard that we kind of track our kids with, and if they're making progress or not. We also use their NISA scores and the results of those. And so what I had to do is I had to compile the data. I had to help work with making sure that we had the right kids in the right places. In 8th grade, we actually do a couple different things, and there's quite a few more math interventions, and so we created another group of students that were going to be in those interventions. This is something I've had a little bit of experience with in the past. The summertime experience, though, there are letters that get mailed home to parents, and so I had to first compile the list, then I had to find all of the addresses and put those on envelopes. From there, I had to make sure I had all of the letters organized that would go home to parents, because every different intervention has a different letter that goes home to parents. Those I color coordinated it all and put in different copies, and then I got to fold those up and stuff them into envelopes so that the correct parents were getting the correct letters. This is something that our assistant principal works with quite a bit, and it's something that was a great experience for me because I work with a lot of these students, and to see the background of this information was an awesome experience. The second thing I did was actually probably the most fun experience that I had while working through this whole program. It was a new teacher orientation. And so my administrator gave me the opportunity. Every summer he meets with all of the teachers, and he goes through everything that's new and specific to Beadle. He gave me the reins to be able to do that on my own. So I was able to create my own presentation. I was able to then go through it with him and make sure I had everything covered. He had very, very little to add, maybe a couple points here and there. And then I had the opportunity to meet with all of these teachers, and this is a photo of us during our meeting, and I got to know them more than just as a teacher, but also as individuals, and got to know a little bit about who they are and why they're at Beadle and what they're excited about doing. And work with them and explain a little bit more about Beadle, and also be kind of a liaison between the admin and the new staff. It's a new experience for all of them, and so it was fun to get to work with everyone, to get to know everybody, and to have a new experience. Like I said, I think this one was the most beneficial for me because I had it all from start to finish, and it was a great, great experience. I did a little bit more with the math intervention curriculum. So the math interventions are kind of difficult to go by because there's not a great tool that we have. As a district, we're working on creating some interventions, but they're not quite done yet, and we have a new math interventionist this year in 8th grade at Beetle. And so in order to make that transition a little easier for her, I worked with her to create the first 2 weeks worth of lesson plans. We worked a lot on order of operations and one-step equations and creating what the class layout should look like, what the first 10 minutes looks like, what the last 10 minutes looks like, and that filling that spot in between. It was a great experience because it's something I know very well. It's something that we've kind of developed over the past 3 years, and it's changed a lot, and I've seen that change over the course of the last few years. And working with her, getting her insights was another great experience, and I think it's going to be a smooth transition. I also know that she feels comfortable with me, and we can work throughout the year as things go on and really develop something amazing. Moving on to the Horizon tasks, the first task that I had was working on the promotion t-shirts. I have created t-shirts before. Being a volleyball coach, I've created t-shirts before through student council, through volleyball, and we've actually used a different company than the company that I worked with this time. It was interesting this time because it wasn't a t-shirt that I was creating. It was a t-shirt I was creating for someone else, and so I didn't have the final say. We went through, I think, when it was all said and done, there were like 90 emails that went back and forth between the t-shirt person and I. We met a couple of times to go over some things. And after this class is all over, there's still going to be some follow-up that I'm going to have to continue with them because I do want to see it all the way through to the end. I'm pretty happy with what we finally decided. I feel like it's going to be a great promotion. One of the big things in Horizon's site plan is they're focusing on the promotion for their students. And in order for their students to feel like they're a part of something, these are kids that come from 3 different high schools. They are students that Horizon doesn't have a sports team, so they don't have like Horizon basketball t-shirts or anything like that. These students are going to be given these t-shirts. They're going to be a gift to them as they walk in on the first day of school. And it's, I think, a really amazing experience to not only promote it, but have the kids talk about it when other people see their t-shirts, and just to feel like they're a part of something by getting another t-shirt that they may not have had that opportunity to do before. The next thing I was able to work with was credit counts. Being a middle school teacher, credit counts is not something that I do on a regular basis, but in order for students to graduate from high school, they need to have a certain amount of credits completed and passed. So I included Millard Public Schools mission statement because Horizon falls very closely into that, and basically they make up the 2 or 3% of students that are at risk for graduating. And those students, they make sure that those students all do graduate. When we have students that are in our mainstream high schools, Millard West, Millard South, and Millard North, that are struggling, and they are having trouble in a regular school setting, a very large school setting, we go back and we take them into Horizon, and Horizon is a place that is a smaller setting. It's a place where they can get credits done a little bit faster because every semester goes by a 9-week period, and they work really hard to make sure that they do build relationships with these students, and they do work hard to make sure that they make them not only knowledgeable citizens, but they also make them well-rounded and help engage them in everything that they are doing. In most high schools, credit counts are not that big of a deal. It's something that the teachers are able to do, and you just sign up for classes. That is assuming that the kids are passing all of these classes. Horizon is a different scenario because oftentimes these students have failed multiple classes because that large environment does not work for them. And so literally every student has to be scheduled by hand. It's not something that a computer program can generate because it misses all of those courses that they've taken but failed. And so I was able to have the opportunity to go in and understand how that works and how to put a student in a class that they have failed, but yet they have to take again. And so it really doesn't count for credit on Infinite Campus, but it does in order for them to graduate because they have to pass it in order to move forward. There were some really tricky cases in this. There were some that were a little easier, but this was one that I really enjoyed doing just because my organizational strengths really came through, and some of them were a mess. They were just all over the place. And so to have that ability to really see those credit counts and learn that not everybody has that easy path, that same path. Yes, they all need 230 credits to graduate, but they also need to have all of these different electives. And what can count as an elective if you already have so many classes, and what fits into each category. And so as an 8th grade teacher, I feel like I learned a lot as well that I can help my students go into and kind of give them a little more background information, because these kids are trying to graduate, and I feel like truly at Horizon they're doing everything that they can to make it work and make them feel successful and help them graduate and be successful in the world today. And the last task that I was given at Horizon was working with their action plan research. Basically, they have a large number of highly disengaged students, and that consists of students that are not wanting to work for any teacher in general. They are absolutely disengaged when it comes to class. They're not showing any work. They won't take a test. They won't do anything. And so I was able to develop a list of probably 60 different tools. This is basically what they're looking for. If you haven't tried this, try it. If you haven't tried this, try it. And it's everything from proximity to talking one-on-one with a student, to working one-on-one with a student, to partnering them up, to keeping their interest level and giving them some type of a tool that will keep them interested. Bottom line, what it comes down to is relationships trumps everything. If you have a relationship with a student, they will work for you. Even those students that are 100% actively disengaged, you have to do something to develop that relationship. And while that's very hard to hear for some teachers, because there's just some kids that are not very likable, that's our job. As an educator, your job is to not judge anyone, and it's to like those students and to try to develop some type of relationship, even with those students that are completely on your nerves. And I believe that this is something that's going to be good to work with, but it was kind of a frustrating task overall for me, because I feel like that's what we know. And the end of things is we all know that best practice is relationships trumps everything. And so it was a little disheartening because I was hoping to find a little bit more, but in the grand scheme of things, I think it'll be great. And they have something to work with. And finally, I wanted to talk about the book that I read for this class, and that book was called Leading with Focus by Mike Schmoker. Short read, and basically I chose this book because for years I have wanted to just keep going and just keep throwing my hat in the ring for different tasks. And I don't know what I want to do, but I know that I love education. And I feel like as I've gotten older, I have learned a lot, not only about myself, but about my job as a teacher and my job and my profession in general. I have learned a lot about myself that I need to find that focus. And I've learned that through taking this course, through taking another course that I also took this summer, and as well as the courses that I teach. There's a lot of room to find that focus, and as an educator, as a mother, as a teacher leader, as a wife, I need to find that focus and focus on what is truly important. And that's what the book all goes back to. That's what Mike talks about the entire book. It's you have these 3 things that you need to focus on, and how are we going to make sure that we have clear expectations for everyone? So not only did this book really connect with me on a personal level, and it connected with me on a personal level as well as on an education level and a leadership level. I can't thank you enough, Jed, for allowing me to do this course, and I look forward to all of the knowledge I've gained from it and where it's going to take me in my next 5 to 10 years. And all I know is I love education, and I'm starting to focus that arrow a little bit and find what's right for me.